The key to overcoming self sabotage is to get started before you feel like it. Today, we're going to get into part two of this conversation around self sabotage and how do we overcome it? How do we deal with these things that come up for ourselves? Last time I talked about the symptoms and the cures for some of these things that come up for us as it relates to self sabotage. This time we're going to talk about some triggers. There's like this trend in social media where people say, I'm triggered, I'm triggered. A lot of these mental health terms have now become just like people use them all the time freely and loosely and say, I'm triggered. So I wanted to get into what are some of the triggers that cause us to self sabotage, that cause us to do things to hold ourselves back from the things that we actually really do want to achieve. But there are these triggers that are coming up, causing us to get off track, get distracted, and be confused on how to respond to certain emotions that we are having. So we're going to get into some of these emotions and what we can kind of do to spot them and turn it around during the process. So it's so common that the things that we actually need to do to overcome these circumstances of holding ourselves back, it's uncomfortable. We don't want to do it, but getting started, doing the things anyway, building that momentum is really what helps get you over the hump. Like just doing it without thinking about it. Even for me, like doing these videos, I always get like this sort of resistance that, I'm like, I want to do this, but I get like this roadblock every time I have to record. And what I do when the time comes is I'm just like, okay, well, the video has to go up on this date, so I got to get it done. I have no more time to sort of just like let this thing hang over my head. Like I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to think about it and I'm just going to do it. And then I do it, right? And so I'm like, why can't I just always do that ahead of time, on schedule, the way that I would like it to be done? But in any event, doing it anyway, just doing it knowing that you have to get it done really is what kind of helps you. And then the triggers will really let us know where our pain points are. The triggers will show us, okay, this is the thing that is really holding you back. This is the thing that you have to pay attention to. This is the thing that you're gonna have to kind of uncover. So let's get into like what these triggers are. The first trigger is anger. When something makes you angry, you should take that as a sign that something needs to change, right? Anger is really just a motivation tool that your body, your being is telling you that something needs to change. There's something about this circumstance and situation that you don't like and that it needs to change. Now, obviously, this is not anger about the government or anger about, circumstances that are not related to you or that are not, within your control at all. We're talking about things that you can possibly control. Maybe it's a circumstance, maybe it's a relationship with a person, maybe it's the way something is done or being done. These type of things that cause you to feel anger, it's a sign that is there to motivate you to take some sort of action. So like for me, usually when I get angry about something, it's usually a situation where I didn't say something I should have said, or I allowed someone to either treat me a certain way or speak to me a certain way or do something that I didn't think was, right for that particular circumstance. And I don't say something about it, right? So a way to sort of overcome that would be to speak up. Not obviously when you're mad, where you're lashing out, but to speak up and have a conversation about what it is that needs to change or do the thing that you feel like needs to change to overcome that anger. Easier said than done, right? But when you don't deal with anger, what happens is it turns into aggression. And that's why you end up seeing how people will react in certain ways for things that really weren't that serious because they had this pent up anger that they never expressed for the thing that actually should have been dealt with, right? So you don't want to let anger go unchecked because it turns into aggression, and then you're going to act in certain ways that you really are not happy with, that you're not proud of, and you're going to wish that you would have just dealt with the actual anger. Sometimes we don't even know why we lashed out, right? Even the person who's doing the lashing out, who's doing the form of aggression, doesn't even know why, because they just let the anger go unchecked for so long. They're so far removed from it, but it's going to come to the surface if you don't deal with it. So know when you have a situation that's causing you to be angry, if you don't deal with it, it can morph and show itself in different ways. So that's the first one. Deal with your anger. The second trigger is sadness. So when you're feeling sadness, you might want to evaluate, why am I feeling sad? Like, where is this coming from? So it's normal to feel sad when you're experiencing a loss, right? It's normal to feel sad about things that didn't go the way that you expected them to go, or when things don't happen the way you intended them to. It's normal to feel sad. It's also normal to feel sad about not being in a certain place that you had expected in life, right? You had a plan, you expected to be at a particular place or in a particular situation, circumstance, status, whatever, and you haven't received that. So there's a type of mourning that's happening there that you're sad about, right? And it's normal to feel sad. I think with sadness, sometimes we tell ourselves not to feel it, right? You shouldn't feel sad. There's something wrong with feeling sad. No, not necessarily the case. It's a natural emotion. I think what we need to do is embrace that sadness and get to the root of it. Why am I feeling sad? What emotion, what circumstance am I experiencing here that's causing me to feel this sadness? And it's okay to cry. You know, crying is a way to release that pain, that hurt, that disappointment. It's okay to feel it. I think what we need to do is not stifle it and let it be fully expressed, and also understanding where this sadness is coming from. And I think journaling is a good place for this, or a good resource for understanding what you're sad about, writing it out, because usually that will allow you to connect to the emotion, connect to that inner place where it's coming from. And then you can take steps to address it from there. But don't let the sadness cause you to self-sabotage, cause you to retreat, cause you to be in isolation, cause you to further feed that sadness. So do things to make you more sad, because now you want to justify the sadness versus just asking yourself, okay, why am I feeling like this? Let me deal with the actual root of it. So that's number 2. Sadness is a trigger. The third trigger of self-sabotage is guilt, right? I did a whole faith-based video on guilt. So if you want to watch that, you can go back to that video as well. But this particular trigger is usually not the guilt when you did something wrong, right? When we did something wrong, we know what we did. We need to either address it, fix it, if you can, apologize for it, whatever it is, address that thing that you're guilty about, that you actually did a wrong for. But when you have not done anything wrong, there's no action that you took, there's no wrong that you've done to a person. You just have this general feeling of guilt, general feeling of I am wrong, right? Or I am not enough, or I am no good, right? That's like the feeling that guilt gives you. And it typically comes from some situation, some interaction, something that happened in childhood that is causing you to have this general feeling of guilt. Or maybe it was in childhood, it could have been, as an adult, maybe certain things happen and you just never dealt with it. And so you're always having this feeling of guilt that you are wrong or you're no good, right? And it usually comes from the judgment or negative words and behaviors of others towards you. So the goal with this particular self-sabotage trigger is to figure out where this guilt is coming from, trying to drill down to why you're feeling this sense of guilt. And again, writing down what you're thinking about when you're feeling it, or when the emotion is really heavy. You can write out, what am I thinking? What are the thoughts that I'm having? And maybe it can help you go back to where these thoughts initiated. And you can ask yourself these questions. Why am I feeling like this? Where did this thought come from? Like, what is the origin of this? Was there something that someone said, something that I experienced that has had me feeling this way? You may not get it on your own. There might be something that you need to work through in therapy, but at least you can have a place of beginning where you're starting to try to analyze, why am I feeling guilty? Because then what you could do as a self-sabotage behavior is to earn that guilt, right? You earn that guilt by doing things that are not healthy for you. So that is also a trigger, guilt. Embarrassment can also be a trigger of self-sabotage. And embarrassment usually comes when we are not proud of an action that we took, right? We're not proud of our behavior. We're not proud of our actions. So therefore we feel embarrassed. And overcoming embarrassment is, the way to basically overcome embarrassment is to sort of address the feeling, accept what you have done. And then whatever steps you can take to deal with what you have done, great, you can do that. But you have to accept it, and you also have to show yourself love and grace. So that is embarrassment. If we don't deal with embarrassment, then we get shame. Shame is the next trigger. And shame basically is a prolonged feeling of embarrassment. And because you are not dealing with the situation, because you're hiding from it, because you haven't accepted it, now it grows into shame. And shame can really grow into a whole other host of things, such as depression. So you want to make sure that you're dealing with the embarrassment when it comes, saying, okay, oh well, it happened, right? I accept it. It is what it is. And you deal with it and you own it. And then you can move on from it and not allow it to grow into shame. The next one is jealousy. So oftentimes jealousy will, it basically is a mask for sadness and general self-dissatisfaction. So you're not satisfied with where you are. You're not satisfied with what you have. You're not satisfied with any number of things within your own life. So because of that, you tend to be jealous of others only because they are living their best life in the way that you wish that you could. So it doesn't even have to be the thing that you want to do or the place where you want to be or the status you want to have, but just the fact that you perceive them to be living the life that they desire, you have this jealousy that is there. Jealousy, although it's a trigger, it also is a good indication of what you actually would want in your life, right? So you have to figure out, what about this person's life, this, whatever the thing is that you're jealous of, what about it is causing you to have this emotion? Because it may not be that you want that. You may not want their house, their spouse, their neighborhood, their child, their, whatever it is, but you may want something about that. Something about that creates this desire within you. And so you can start to uncover, what is it that I want? Jealousy can act as a self-sabotage when you start to do things towards that other person or whatever it is, circumstance that you are jealous of. You might do things that cause you to have shame, cause you to be embarrassed, and cause you to have further sadness. So they kind of all tie into each other in a way. So you definitely want to check that jealousy and figure out how you can be happy for the person, what things that you can look at in their circumstance that you can say that I am happy for, or I commend, or I admire, so that you turn that jealousy into admiration. Next is resentment. So oftentimes we find the person or circumstance that we resent is not living up to our expectations, right? So we have certain expectations that we put on others. Everybody does it. No one's immune from it. You put on these expectations, and when others don't live up to those expectations, you have this feeling of resentment to them. So really what we need to do when we're practicing and trying to overcome resentment or not staying in that place of resentment is to really accept, right? We can't control what other people do. We can't control how other people act or how they behave. We can speak, we can express ourselves, we can communicate, right? But also, it's nobody's responsibility to live up to our expectations, right? You can be in a relationship and decide that, okay, you have these expectations and you can discuss them. And if you guys are on the same page, then yeah, maybe you want to both work towards those expectations if they're reasonable for both of you. But if you just have expectations and the person doesn't live up to those expectations and they made no promises, you can't expect for others to live up to your expectations. It doesn't even have to be a romantic relationship. It could be what you thought your boss was going to do, what you thought your coworker was going to do, what you thought your client was going to do. These are all expectations that we create without an agreement. And therefore, when the person doesn't hold up to it, we have this feeling of resentment. So again, the cure for resentment is to practice acceptance, control the things that you can control, and let go of the things that you cannot. And then finally, regret. So regret is also a trigger for self-sabotage because you regret things that you did not do. We regret things that we did not do more than we regret things that we did do. So you have tons of things in your life, everybody does, things that they did not do, and often the regret stems from those things. So regret is an indication of things that we need to change in the future, right? What we need to change now going forward. So pay attention to the things that you're regretting. If you regret it that you didn't try hard enough at work, or you didn't try hard enough at school, or you didn't pursue a goal hard enough. Now you can make the change to do it now, right? Whatever it is that you're pursuing now, whatever endeavors that you're going after, do it now with that fervency, right? If you didn't appreciate someone who was in your life, or maybe you lost someone and you're like, I wish I would have spent more time, that is an indication that you need to do that now, right? Whoever it is that's in your life, spend more time, be more intentional about those relationships, right? If you feel like, I should have been better with my health or my weight or whatever, you can do that now. That's an indication. If you regret that you didn't do it in the past, do it now. Now is the opportunity. So that's ways that our sort of body, our psyche, our intuition is speaking to us to tell us, hey, you regret this, so do it now. This is going to help you be who you need to be, go where you need to go, right? All these things, identifying these emotions, identifying these triggers, help us to tap into what we can fix going forward, so we're no longer dealing with this. Now, are you going to get rid of these emotions forever? No, but there are new lessons, new adventures, new goals and new tasks to tackle to be able to overcome them in that present moment, so that you can go on to continue to grow and be who you want to be. Well, that is it for today. I hope that these, tips help you to identify areas and ways that you might be self-sabotaging, and how you can kind of stop it in its track and turn it around so that you can continue to be the best self that you could be. I appreciate you for watching. Please leave me a comment. Let me know how this information has helped you or impacted you, and I will see you next time.